Hi, I'm Dr. Angela Yakey.
And I'm Dr. Kathleen O'Neill-Smith.
Welcome back to the FIRRIMup Doctors, Good Medicine docuseries.
We are so glad you joined us.
We want to provide you with credible health resources, guide you in your treatment options, and fire you up to take control of your health.
Okay, now we're going to get started, and I'm going to introduce our FIRRIMup doctors. We have Dr. Angela Yakey and Dr. Kathleen O'Neill-Smith here today.
Hey, thanks, Nicole. Hi, Dr. Kathleen up in Boston. How are you?
Good. How are you? How are you, Dr. Akey?
Doing great. It's our 22nd week here in Gainesville, Florida. Been busy with COVID patients.
I'm sure you have. I'm sure you have. How is everything going? How are your patients?
Good. Happy to report that of the two that were hospitalized, no one's been intubated, and knock wood, we haven't lost anybody.
Wow.
Really happy about that. We have protocols in my private practice, North Florida Integrative Medicine, where we see people every single day. If they're COVID positive or if they're a person under investigation, meaning their COVID swabs pending, because we're really behind with COVID swabbing. It takes a little while to get here in Gainesville.
Yeah, no, it takes a while everywhere to get it. It seems that it should be readily available, but I think that the supplies and the reagents, and it's hard. It's hard right now. I don't know what's going to happen as everything opens up, but let's look and see where we are.
Yeah, so this is a reminder of how we started, and here is how we are now. Yeah, so if you look, Alachua County in North Central Florida is actually red now. We're very busy with COVID. But yeah, let's keep looking at some statistics here in North Florida and in Boston. So in the United States, there's 5.2 million confirmed, total tested about 64 million, 166,000 deaths, and 1.7 million recovered. Here in my home state of Florida, it's 4 million tested, over 500,000 confirmed. Hospitalized were 32,349, and deaths are 8,765. Here in Alachua County, as of today, 4,309 confirmed, 26 deaths, and we're managing over 20 COVID positive patients currently in my 6,000 patient practice.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're lucky to have you, that's for sure, because I know how creative you are with helping people be well.
I have a really great team. Like, I'm not on call this weekend, but one of our team members is actually seeing everyone every day who has COVID. So really great teamwork.
Yeah, it's really important to help people through this, to make sure they know they're not alone, to offer them ideas about how to be comfortable. You know, I know that the fever, etc. And I love what we're going to talk about today. So, I mean, here in Boston, we have basically had hit a plateau, and now as schools are coming back and people are coming back from their vacations, we're a little bit on the rise. And our governor has identified communities that are on the rise, and the goal is really to go back a phase to try to quiet things down so that the children can go back to school and be in the classroom. But I mean, it's really not up to anybody. It's up to the virus and how the virus wants to stealthily attack. So we've got a similar number of deaths to you in Florida, the same in Massachusetts, and in my county, we have about 1,000 deaths presently, but we have to wait and see what happens in the next month around Labor Day or so.
Yeah, very similar. It's interesting that your amount of deaths are equal to ours, but I don't think it's over in Florida. And I'm concerned about your uptick with the students coming back. We're having students coming back here in Gainesville as well, sometime in the next month. Mm-hmm. So I don't want anybody to be fearful, because look at the most important column here is the case fatality rate, which is still 6 out of 1,000. So you're going to be fine statistically, most likely, if you were to get COVID, and we're here to support you through it. Also, we offer progressive therapies, and I know many of our patients have already got our book, Kick COVID-19 to the Curb. There is a supplement table of 5 pages with hyperlinks to the peer-reviewed literature as to why the supplements we're recommending. Also, I'm happy to announce that we're now on Amazon Kindle. So for all your friends and family who got exposed or who wants to read about supplements, it's $9.99 on Amazon Kindle. So it's easy to access, kick COVID-19 to the curb. Next slide. Okay, so for today's topic, we're talking about one of the adjunctive ways to strengthen your immune system. So for the frequently asked question number 20 is, how can melatonin affect COVID-19 infection? And so on our website will be uploaded 2 peer-reviewed papers, and we're just going to go through the highlights. Basically, with the morbidity and mortality primarily with the COVID-19 infection, it has to do with that phase 3, where it usually happens about day 10, where there's an overwhelming inflammation that happens in the lungs primarily. And so that's where, 2 patients today are on day 7 and day 4 of their COVID infection respectively. One person I'm particularly concerned about, he's in his mid-60s, and he's getting away with cold-like symptoms. So he's on day 7. But I said, listen, the weekend's coming. Let's get you on Shauna's schedule so she can see you every day, because I worry on that phase 3 that usually happens about day 10 that the lungs start getting involved. And it's because of this concept called cytokine storm, where there's an over exuberant response in terms of your own immune system to having the COVID-19 virus. So melatonin has potent antioxidant and anti-inflammatory activities. And as my crowd knows, I'm always talking about rust and fire, or fire and rust. So it's anti-rust or antioxidant, and it's also anti-inflammatory. So that's a good thing. And so it would normally reduce the highly pro-inflammatory cytokine storm and neutralize the free radicals that preserve the cell's integrity, or keeps it whole, and prevents the lung damage. So that's what melatonin does in terms of COVID-19 infection. Do you have any comments on that, Dr. Kathleen?
It's so amazing because, of course, everybody thinks about melatonin in terms of sleep. But melatonin is such a primitive molecule and hormone, I'll call it, or peptide. It doesn't really matter what you call it. But within the body, it's very primitive. And of course, it has lots of other activities. We just don't learn about every deep activity when we're in med school and in residency, because we're moving on to what the drugs do, right? So there's no real medication, pharmaceutical that treats melatonin. So we don't talk a lot about that, but this is just really fascinating about how melatonin changes with age, which we know it goes down, right? And we know that people like to use it for sleep, but melatonin has a really important role, as you said, in the immune cells and in the immune system. So it's really, really important to understand that there are a lot of new roles that melatonin can play that you might hear about today.
Yeah, and it has a high margin of safety, meaning the dosage is very safe. I remember when I presented in Spain about 5 years ago, there was an hour talk on high dose melatonin to be used to fortify the immune system in recalcitrant end stage cancers. Like they were using very high dose, like 50 milligrams. And at the time I was using 1 milligram up to 15 milligrams for sleep, which I'm still using, but it has a good effect in terms of boosting the immune system.
When I did end-of-life care and palliative care in my former job, I used a lot of melatonin in cancer patients when they were, under my care. And it really helped them so much from the immune system perspective, to kind of help reduce their pain, help improve their energy, they would wake up, it's really good to reduce the pain meds, etc.
Melatonin is so important in circadian rhythm, and circadian rhythm is so important in overall health. I remember I went to a sleep conference about 3 years ago, and they said the first thing that happens when you're getting sick, be it with virus or cancer or anything or aging, is your circadian rhythm gets messed up. Mm-hmm. Just think about it. Even if you caught the flu, you're tired, but you can't sleep, right? So melatonin helps re-regulate that and helps the immune system. So it's actually the opposite of cortisol. So cortisol, that stress hormone's high in the morning and comes down at night. Well, melatonin should start going high at night and then peaks towards the morning. And you should have this nice kind of rhythm with cortisol in the daytime and melatonin in the nighttime. And that is the backbone of your circadian rhythm. If that gets messed up, you're going to feel tired or brain foggy, or you won't be functioning as well.
Really important. Yeah. And especially with aging. Obviously, you know, one of the things that we talked about previously is that the people who are over 55, over 60, 65 are more at risk for damage if they are exposed to COVID and they are infected with COVID. So lung damage, heart damage, et cetera. So one of the things that's really, really important to understand is that, you know, we can mitigate in aging, our melatonin levels are down, and we can mitigate, you know, and improve those melatonin levels very readily with 1 milligram, 3 milligrams, whatever dose feels good for a particular individual. Everybody will need different amounts depending upon other things, but starting low and titrating up slowly from 1 to 2 to 3 milligrams will be, you know, safe to do, completely safe.
Exactly. And we all know that at age 50, melatonin levels are low anyway. So you're just replacing what you're already missing anyway to help you sleep. So melatonin has antiviral actions against viruses other than COVID-19. There's a lot of data behind it. There's a very high safety profile, as I mentioned, and it should be used in this situation, especially with COVID being around. It's inexpensive, it's non-toxic, it has a long shelf life. You could buy it over the counter. We believe that you should add melatonin to your armamentarium, especially if you're not sleeping well. Melatonin is very safe and effective.
Very safe.
Next slide.
So this is I'm a science teacher, but I won't really bore you with all of this. But on the left is a healthy situation. On the right is an unhealthy situation. But this is a cell, and the cell membrane, show the cell membrane, the little blue squigglies there. Those are all the cell membrane. And to be honest, remember that those are made of good fats. So you need a lot of good fats and phosphatidylcholine to keep that healthy, because when you are invaded and when COVID-19 or any other bug, viruses, bacteria comes in to the system, you need to have a healthy cell membrane. So when COVID-19 comes in, it disrupts a healthy cell. So a macrophage is an immune cell. And so an immune cell will function normally. And within this immune cell, we basically have sugar come in and we have lactic acid go out. Sugar comes in, lactic acid goes out. When sugar comes in, it actually goes through down in this little brown circle down here. It comes into the mitochondria, the powerhouse of our cell. This is like the generator of your cell. And this generator is designed to make energy. So energy to clear out any of the rust, energy to clear out any of the inflammation. So that energy is so important. It's antioxidative and it's anti-inflammatory. And what you can see down here at the bottom is melatonin. And melatonin gets produced as well. So when sugar comes in and gets into our cells for energy production, we also make melatonin. So if someone has diabetes, type 1 or type 2, they likely have a melatonin issue or even a serotonin issue. So it's really important to understand that. So understanding your past medical history would be really important. When the macrophage, this cell here, you know, that this blue little membrane is denoting, gets infected with COVID-19, it changes the way it functions. So immune cells, when they get infected, we want them to make more energy. We want them to become very phagocytic and to chew up and spit out garbage. And we want them to make ATP really fast. But what happens is that COVID-19 macrophage or immune cell takes over the mitochondria. And so down below, when you go down to the bottom, the brown where Dr. Icky is circling, this, when a patient has hypoxia or low oxygen, this little HIF over on the right, that's a hypoxia inducible factor. So there's a protein that gets turned on and then basically goes into the cell to activate this PDK, PDC cycle and shuts off sugar from going into the cell and making ATP the way we need it, and then also making melatonin as an anti-inflammatory to turn off the inflammation that's happening from COVID-19. we want to turn off the inflammation from COVID-19. If we don't have melatonin and appropriate ATP, then we can't do that anymore. And so what happens is that we end up, if we go up above, the sugar can't go into this cycle in the brown, so it takes another cycle. It has the name of the cycle is called the PPP shunt, and we end up making a lot more pro-inflammatory cytokines. Now, if that didn't get overactivated, then we wouldn't get a cytokine storm. We would be able to clean up COVID and get rid of it if there was just a little bit of this happening. But the problem is there's so many macrophages that are activated, or immune cells that are activated by COVID-19 as exhibited by the fever and the cough, etc. But they're deep in the lung. And when they're deep in the lung, they're very hypoxic. And it's very difficult to turn off the garbage production, the rust, the inflammatory debris, and we end up with this big cytokine storm. And so this is the essence of what's happening when COVID-19 infects a cell. And so really, we need those anti-inflammatory, shut down the pro-inflammatory cytokine effects. We need the antioxidative effects that will clean up the rust and the debris, and we need the antiviral actions of the melatonin. So melatonin is a key way in order to protect yourself from COVID-19 and to keep your generator, the powerhouse of your cell, very active in a healthy way. So you can see that the melatonin is very small over here. Very large over here on the left, because it's being released, it's being produced. But once we get that red X in the center there, we're no longer producing that melatonin to reduce those pro-inflammatory chemicals and to basically clean up. So it's really important. Much more lactic acid gets thrown out of the cell, and that just produces this whole acidic environment, and the immune cells cannot recover, and the cytokine storm takes over. So melatonin is a great way, inexpensively, safely, to protect yourself and to protect yourselves when they are exposed to COVID-19, particularly if you're aging or if you have problems with hypoxia at baseline or problems with sugar at baseline.
Wow, now you can see why Dr. Kathleen's a science teacher before she became a doctor. That is some major basic science. So my take-home message here is that melatonin will decrease the pro-inflammatory cytokines to prevent cytokine storm. And what we just taught you is that over 50, your melatonin levels are low. So Dr. Kathleen, Bob wants to know proper dosage of melatonin.
Well, I think for this particular setting with COVID-19 and COVID-19 exposure, I think the dose could be anywhere between, I would start with 0.5 or 1 milligram and titrate up. And obviously you want to sleep. So sometimes melatonin can be activating. When it's activating the powerhouse of your cells, sometimes it can be activating. So start between 0.5 or 1 milligram, go up to 3 milligrams and take it at night, see how you sleep, and this can reset. I think of melatonin being a lower dose being needed at night. And if you go high doses above 15 milligrams or even 10 milligrams, that you may get activated, and that's when you'll use it in the morning for the powerhouse of the cell.
That's a good pearl. The other pearl that I learned about a decade ago was that sometimes, like let's say at 1 milligram, you get vivid dreams. You should actually increase the dose to like 2 or 3 milligrams and see if you go deeper and the vivid dreams go away. So that's another pearl you might think about.
Like that. Mm-hmm.
So you can get a liquid kind where you could titrate a dose just for you, or you could do a pill kind and bite off a little piece. But basically, you'll find the happy dose that helps you sleep well if you're using it primarily for sleep. But based on the science behind this, my family members are using it just because it's COVID time. Michelle wants to know, are there specific types of melatonin that are more bioavailable?
Not that I know of. I think that melatonin is melatonin. Yeah, not that I know of.
Same here. And then there's a final question about my friends watch webinars. If they don't have Facebook and not currently a patient, how can they watch and join live? Okay. Oh, thank you. First of all, we're flattered that you're referring us to your circle of friends and families and people all over the world. Thank you so much, Jan. They can sign up at FIRRIMupDoctors.com to get our weekly newsletters from that company. And there's a Zoom link on there if they want to come. So FIRRIMupDoctors.com.
So that's on our website, and they can go onto the website and they can listen to the webinar.
Okay, there's a question about time-released melatonin. Yeah, some people actually wake up with melatonin at 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning. Sometimes that's in Chinese medicine, a cortisol surge or something else. But sometimes when I switch them to time-released melatonin, they're able to sleep through the night. So it depends on you, Katie, whether or not that you need the time-released as opposed to the regular release melatonin. Masuma wants to know, Dr. Kathleen, can she take 1 milligram in the evening and the morning?
Yes, absolutely. So you just want to know how you're feeling. Again, as you just noted, Dr. Akey, the cortisol and melatonin, as you noted in the very beginning, are really important to think about in balance. Those are your yin and your yang, right? So you want to understand. And then cortisol will also have a high insulin and potentially a high glucose as well. So, I think that you've got to try the doses that you feel good with. Again, I do think it's the lower doses for sleep typically and higher doses for energy during the day. I used it a lot in my end of life care practice when people were inpatient and to wake people up in the day as well. But I would use a higher dose typically in the morning for awakening. But you can try. Just don't want you to feel sleepy during the day.
That brings me to a question that came in by email yesterday. There was a person who has impaired fasting glucose, and she had pulled a paper from 2016 that melatonin suppresses insulin release at nighttime, and that she was wondering if it was contributing to her impaired fasting glucose or her risk of transitioning to type 2 diabetes. So I read the paper she sent, and it does make sense physiologically at night that you want to impair insulin so that you don't go hypoglycemic at night when you're not eating. As to whether or not it increases your likelihood to getting type 2 diabetes, it looked like, according to that paper, certain gene single nucleotide polypeptide mutations would put you at higher risk for that, and that would be an individual telehealth discussion with me.
But I would still say that if you had a SNP, even if you had a single nucleotide a genetic reason for that potentially happening, I'm pretty sure that food will signal your genes appropriately. So if you are one to eat late at night, if you're one to eat carbs at night, if you're one not to move, I think then you're going to have more risk of that. But if you can really modulate your food and eat carbs, if you're going to eat carbs that have a lot of natural fiber, I don't think that's going to happen.
Great. So for the 44 people on this call and everyone listening on Facebook Live, try not to eat after 7 p.m. because you double your insulin after 7 p.m. if you eat those carbs. So great. I think that's all for the questions. I have one more slide I wanted to talk to you about. I'm really, really excited that a book that I've been co-editing for 2 years is actually going to be released next week. This is actually the first medical textbook for doctors on fascia or soft tissue. And Dr. Kathleen O'Neill-Smith and I were actually the co-authors of the chapter on hormones and fascia. So we're going to step out of the COVID mode for next week's teaching to talk to you guys about soft tissue, fascia, and chronic pain. So I hope you all can come. I went ahead and gave you my 20% discount code if you're interested in purchasing this book. It's #1 right now in sports medicine on Amazon. So it's available in paperback on Amazon. You should use the discount code though and go to the actual publisher if you want to use the discount code. And I wanted to thank you all for the support. I'm super excited about this textbook coming. It's going to change the way conventional doctors think about pain and regeneration and regenerative medicine. And I wanted to thank Dr. Kathleen for helping me write the chapter on hormones and fascia. It's
an amazing book. And I really do think that pain, acute and chronic pain, are two things that aren't understood very well. They're really just symptoms. And Dr. Reiki and David Sondak did an amazing job pulling together some world-renowned authors to contribute to this book. So it's really, really exciting. But we will continue to give you little information on fascia, pain, and other things in addition to COVID, because it will all be related. Everything's related. And I'm looking forward to next week as well. Yeah, it's kind of like chronic pain syndrome. We could tie it into COVID with that aches and pains and chest pains that you get when you get COVID. We'll find a way to tie it in, but I'm super excited because a lot of you all have presented to our team with chronic pain that with a kind of a different eye at looking at it. For example,
with Dr. Owens using his laser, or us using progressive therapies like peptides, or just nutritional therapies like omega-3s and phosphatidylcholine, your pain syndromes have gotten better. And so super excited to share this with you. Please feel free to share it with your friends and family. Even though it's directed towards medical people, I think anybody could read it, especially if you have chronic low back pain, ankle pain, knee pain, headaches, whiplash pain, or anything like that. I think you'll really, really enjoy it. So for now, thank you, Dr. Kathleen, for coming. And for you all, be safe, be well, and God bless you all.
Oh, thank you all. Have a beautiful day.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this out with some final things. So we currently have a 10% off code for these two melatonin products. We have the melatonin liquid that is in a lemon flavor, and this is a Numedica product. And then we also have another Numedica product, which is the melatonin 3 milligrams lozenges, and it is peppermint flavor. We do have this going for 2 weeks starting today, and the code is FIRRIMup Sleep. And it is through our new store, which is through Get Healthy. So if you're on your FIRRIMup Doctors website and you go shop, you should see a tab that says Get Healthy. And once you click on that, you can create your account and you can browse all the supplements and use this code at checkout. If there's anything specific you're looking for, you can email the FIRRIMup Doctors at Gmail, and we can help you check out and get that supplement for you. And we still have our August special going. So if you buy our Kick COVID-19 to the Curb guidebook, the paperback or the ebook version, you will receive 20% off of ultra potent vitamin C and zinc. All you have to do is email FIRRIMup Doctors at Gmail or call the office at 352-332-6680, and we can get you set up and get that payment over the phone for you. This is our website down here where you can purchase the guidebook. It also has the links to these 3 platforms to purchase the ebook version of the guidebook. You can also see that textbook that Dr. Iggy was talking about on our Kick COVID-19 to the Curb and other books page. You'll be able to go to this website and use this code for your 20% off discount. And other than that, I think that is pretty much it. So let me just look at my notes and make sure I had nothing else to discuss with everybody. Yeah, if anyone has any other follow-up questions, you can email FIRRIMupDoctors@gmail.com and we can help you out. If anyone has any other further questions, you can message onto the FIRRIMup Doctors Facebook page. You can message us a private message or comment, and we'll be able to get back to you. Thank you everyone for coming, and I'm going to play our outro video.
We're so glad you joined us today.
We hope we've given you the tools to take control of your health.
For more good medicine and information about any treatments, supplements, and resources discussed today, please visit us at www.FIRRIMupDoctors.com. That's FIRRIM doctors.com.
And wherever you're listening from, remember to like us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels so you don't miss out.
The information provided is not a substitute for professional medical advice. This should not be used to diagnose, treat, or manage health problems without consultation. If you do experience any of the symptoms discussed today, please contact your nearest healthcare professional.